Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, of course, Elden Ring. My name is Hello, and this is the things you didn't know in Elden Ring series. Big or small useful details to use in your own playthroughs, as well as the unexpected and very interesting details around the game, its lore, and the world. As always, a big thank you to you guys for getting involved in the series in the comments. We have plenty more to talk about today, especially some from you guys in previous episodes. But without any further ado, let's begin today's video. We begin with a pretty subtle one that I really like, actually. I'm wearing Dee's armor set here, or rather the twinned armor set. Turns out, of course, as you play the game, you're going to find a second character, a second Dee. This is the brother of Dee. In the game, you'll be able to see Dee wearing this armor set, you can wear it, and of course, Dee's brother can wear it. As you can see, it's essentially two people in one, right? It's a really cool design, and it harkens back to Dark Souls 1, and everyone's favorite knight, Lautrec, who, does some betraying of his own. He's wearing this armor set that's sort of hugging himself, and this armor set just instantly reminds me of that. So it's very cool, nice little reference there. But what we have is a silver person and a gold person sort of melded into one. When Dee or you are wearing this armor set, it's the golden person that's in charge, which is me right now. Then you have this silver head that sticks out forward, sort of hugging yourself, as well as a golden arm around that, holding it all together. That head leans forward and out of place just to show that, you're the head that's in control. When Dee's brother is wearing the armor, it looks like the silver person of the armor set is the upright one, the one that's in control. So I like to imagine Dee's brother, whenever he moves around, if they ever did that, he'd be leaning backwards like this so that the silver head of the armor is upright the whole time. But I imagine that would take a lot of effort to animate, so they just have him stand still like this, leaning back in that way that he does. I find that a really cool detail. Depending on who's wearing the armor set and who's in charge, depends on whether it's the gold or the silver person in the correct position. So not only is it a really cool armor set in design and look, but there's that subtle mechanic to who's wearing the armor, which I really like. For our next thing though, we have one that's immediately useful to you guys as you play. Now, there's an item in this game that's used to craft both the silver pickled foulfoot and the gold pickled foulfoot. Now, these two things are ridiculously useful. The gold in an original playthrough is going to boost your rune acquisition for a time, so when you're farming runes, this is really important to have. But the silver one is actually really useful to me specifically, as I make lots of content and YouTube videos and builds and so on lots of different things in this game. I kind of need like all of the items. And as I've progressed and put more and more hours in, I've realized, I actually don't have the item and I have to go farm a mob or an enemy or whatever. Using this item in that context really helps me get those items a little bit faster. Sometimes they take hours to farm. Naturally, we can put on the silver scarab to raise item discovery as a more permanent solution, but using that and the silver pickled foulfoot, well, that's going to give me way more chance to actually get what I need. It's really helpful. So to have the resources necessary for this, roa fruit, silver firefly, sure, those are fine, but the four-toed foulfoot is from hunting birds. Having a consistent, reliable source for this is really important. This comes from SV Stoned SVS once again, who says that there's actually a really good place to farm these mobs. Here in South Caelid, right next to the Cathedral of Dragon Communion, he tells us that from the entrance, if you head west and go towards sort of the cliff edge over here, just behind the church, there's the exact mobs we need to farm to get this drop in a consistent manner. A nice marker here is the Banished Knight that's watching over this area, and here are some of the mobs, these penguin types, that do actually drop that foot. They also drop the flight pinions here, which you can use to craft arrows. The ride takes a few seconds to actually get here, and we have 3 of these birds to just take out. And there we go, I got my first one within one go of trying. From spawn, I just turn west and then run outside of the church itself, and literally from here you can see the birds right there. It's actually an incredible spawn. It's so insanely close to a bonfire that you can easily just come over and kill these guys. Now, if you are using, say, thrown knives or a bow, that you can have an easier time getting all 3, but it's completely fine for me to just get 2 each turn. Just like that, I've got another one. So yes, this is a great source and a great farm for this. Thanks for letting me know about that, SV Stoned. All right, next we have a quick one to do with the 3 aspects of the Crucible incantations. There's the breath attack, which you can channel and walk forward while breathing fire, which is cool. There's the Crucible tail, which is a 1 swipe, or you can combo it into the double by holding it and sending out a bigger tail. And lastly, there's the horns, which charges you forward and sort of uppercuts enemies with sort of an elbow strike. Now, recently I was talking about the Crucible Knight weapon, Celeria's Tree, which is sort of a spear, or a great spear that's really effective. Did a whole build about it. And in that I was wearing Crucible armor. Something I didn't realize until very recently, actually, is that the Crucible armor, whether it's the axe armor or the tree armor, each piece that you are wearing of this set will increase the power of the Crucible incantations. So if you are using the aspects of Crucible, whether it's the horns, breath, or tail, you can increase the damage it does with each individual piece you're wearing. And this reminds me of magic weapon arts being improved by an armor set as well. The Spellblade Traveling Attire, or of course the Rogier set, each piece of this will increase magical Ashes of War by 2%, which is more than what it actually says in Glintstone Sorcery skills. As it turns out, this armor set is even more effective than Rogier's for your spells and such. This increases the damage of the Crucible incantation by 4% per armor piece. So you can actually increase the damage of each of these incantations by 16% by wearing just the full set. That's a really solid increase to say that this armor set is already really good and fits with the theme of the build anyway. And with these incantations receiving various buffs recently anyway, with the damage, with the speed at which they come out, you could find yourself actually giving them a try. So wearing this armor set when doing so, obviously worth doing. Next up, we have one from the comments again. Emily tells us about NPC summons, which you might have an obvious solution or plan when you're going to summon them. Take Nephililu here, the warrior. I think what most people would do, myself included, is upon summoning some help like this from an NPC, I would take a look at them and go, oh, that's cool. Maybe look at their equipment, see what they're going to use, and then take them into the boss fight, and hopefully we'll win. But Emily lets us know that that's not something you need to do at all. In fact, you can just summon them and just walk straight away from the boss fight and they'll come with you. And take Nephili here. She will just come with you and clear the entirety of Stormvale Castle. Other than perhaps a few select boundaries, she will surprisingly go very far with you. Like, she will actively fight and clear the area with you. So if you've maybe run through the middle, or you've made your way through a specific area and there's still more to clear, and you want to make it easier for yourself, especially in like a new playthrough, an early game playthrough, having a useful summon like this by your side, certainly helpful. I guess in the older games, summons like this were more of a specific use, but in a more open world game like Elden Ring, yeah, there's more possibilities with them. It's nice to kind of have them by your side because it gives them more life. Next, we actually have one from Josh who lets me know about the Mimic Tier. Yes, we all know about the Mimic Tier and how when you summon it, it will basically be a copy of whatever you've got equipped. But it turns out Josh has been working on a build to make a immortal Mimic Tier that can solo bosses for you. And with that came the raw meat Dumpling here, a consumable that restores health when you take it, a good amount of that, but it will also poison the user. And obviously, you've got a limited amount of them. I have 3 here. That's the maximum you can hold at one time. But the Mimic Tier will copy whatever you've got. So let's say I put on these raw meat dumplings and I take off all of the other healing that I've got. Then by summoning the Mimic Tier, it will copy what I've currently got. So it will have my complete build, but it will have none of these extra heals. It will just have the raw meat dumpling to heal itself with. But unlike me, the Mimic can infinitely use whatever I give it. So even though I can only use 3 of these meat dumplings, the Mimic can just keep using them. Keep getting that massive heal. And of course, while the Mimic does its thing, it's not like you can't just then go ahead and equip your heals again like normal once you've actually summoned him. As you can see, it's pretty outrageously effective. It doesn't take much to make the Mimic Tier just stupidly broken once again. Back to the old days, the original playthroughs where everyone was just relying on this thing. Next, we have a pretty interesting one. This is out of game. It's from George R.R. Martin, who's just released a new book, and obviously has had the whole success of the House of Dragons series. And so with all of that happening, he's been on a late night talk show. And in this interview that he was doing, he actually talked about Elden Ring and his involvement in the writing, giving more actual context. For a long time, especially before the game released, there was this period of like, what did he actually do being a big question? You know, did he help write the main story that we go through? What did he actually decide? What was his true creative involvement? Well, while we've had little tidbits from him here and there, even suggesting that it was just a brief conversation with Miyazaki over dinner one time, turns out there was, yes, a bit more to it, and he actually explained in a bit more detail what he did. So as it turns out, he was asked to create the world and its history, basically the world setup, but not any of the current story. So what you experience in game, the story, the characters and their involvements, that's nothing to do with George. But the lands between and its history, you know, the shattering, all of the gods and demigods, those characters and their meaning and what came before we actually play, that was all him. He wrote a history of what happened before the events of the game, specifically stating what happened 5,000 years before the current game as we play it. And I don't believe it's ever been outright said like that in game or anywhere else that I know of, that the events that led to the shattering and everything after that before we actually play were literally 5,000 years, which certainly makes the characters involved seem a lot older than I thought. He went on to state that he wrote who the characters were, who was killing who and why, and even what powers they had. Talking finally about the Elden Ring 2, describing it as a bunch of runes that were split into many pieces, which is what screwed up the world originally. That was his concept. A lot more than I expected. I imagined the lands between as a concept and maybe the outer gods were his work, but it seems he was a lot more involved in the finer details, like who Marika was, who the families were, and even their very powers. That could mean he's the person that decided Rykard would be melded with the Great Serpent, or that Radahn holds back the stars, or even that he uses gravity magic, in fact, which is maybe what forced the devs to make this new type of magic, gravity spells. I think the world of Elden Ring and its story, its characters is fantastic, but that's no surprise, I am a massive fan of Martin's work. If you want to watch the full interview, I definitely recommend that. It's on the Stephen Colbert YouTube channel. But there you have it, that was today's Things You Didn't Know in Elden Ring. If you guys enjoyed the series, then let me know with a like so I can keep doing it. But more important than that is if you have something, whether it's in-game or out, whether it's big or small, if there's a detail you think I or other people don't know, then let me know in the comments and we might just include it in a video. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.